Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and we're back again with another role-playing game review. Recently, Free League Publishing sent us their entire run of books for Coriolis, the Third Horizon. I say their entire run of books because there are now, count them, 4 hardcover books for this game. But today we're going to be taking a look at the core book, which has everything you need in it to run a game of Coriolis, the Third Horizon. Everything for the players, the game master, and it is a fantastic, almost 400-page tome. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at it today, and then I'll be doing some other videos looking at the other books that are part of this game as well. But today, let's dive into Coriolis, the Third Horizon, the core book. Now, Coriolis might be a little bit different than the sci-fi games you have played in the past. A lot of the sci-fi games that I know that I have been introduced to have a very Western civilization feel to it. I think of Firefly, first thing, show and game, that has kind of an American West frontier kind of idea to it. Coriolis has a more Eastern and Middle Eastern setting. The aesthetic, the theme is all there in this game. The art reflects that, as well as the lore behind a lot of the creatures that you will be coming up against as well. So very excited about this. They sent us all of the hardcovers. They also sent us the PDFs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go away from this view, and we're going to jump to my computer screen, where I'm going to pull up the PDF so that hopefully you can see a better image of the text as well as the art that is in this book. And I'm just really excited to dive into Coriolis, the Third Horizon. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside this book. All right, everybody, so here we are with the PDF of Coriolis, the Third Horizon by Free League Publishing, and we're getting this nice close view of the cover art, which I really like, actually. It's a really strong piece of sci-fi art, and it gives you a bit of a feel. It's dark, it's a little menacing, you have a little bit of light, but the light that's there is either really bright or almost kind of red tinted. Which gives you a little bit of that menacing feeling. Looks like these explorers are taking a look at probably some ruined planet, and who knows what it is exactly they're looking for. Maybe they're scavengers, or maybe they're looking for a lost individual. So either way, really cool piece of art. It's evocative. It gets me thinking about the game that I'm about to play. Let's go ahead and dive on in, though, to our table of contents, where we can see the book is broken down into 15 different sections for this game. The first 7 sections are very focused on information that will be very pertinent to the players as well as the game master. And then the rest of the book, chapters 8 through 15, are more for the person running the game. It's going to have a ton of lore for the Third Horizon, this series of galaxies and worlds, as well as the factions that people those worlds, and then also Coriolis, which is this central hub space station where a lot of the factions meet to discuss their world and the things that they're going to be doing there. A chapter on the Kua system, which is the main system next to or where Coriolis is, as well as an atlas of the Third Horizon, the beast and genie of the world, as well as campaign information. So like I said, first portion of the book is going to be focused on information for the game master and the players, and then everything else towards the second half of the book is going to be more just for the game master. And this, again, is a rather large book. It's about 400 pages long, so tons of great information in it for the game master and the players. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take the view from a single page view over to a 2-page view, because I want to show you this piece of art for the introduction. Like almost every other Free League Publishing book that I have seen, they always do these nice 2-page spread works of art introducing each of the chapters, and so I really like taking the time to really showcase them when I can. This particular image is one of Coriolis, the space station, where pretty much huge parts of the game can and will take place. This is the central location where all of the factions will meet, and they have a council here. And I mean, this isn't one city. This is like a whole bunch of cities all thrown together on this space station. And then off to the left of the image, we see a little bit of the planet Kua, which is the planet that's named after the system where the Coriolis is kind of parked or in orbit. So really cool piece of art. I always like their 2-page spreads, and I wanted to make sure to showcase that real quick. So now we are into the introduction of the game itself. So here we have a really good couple of pages explaining to us what the game is going to be like being played, and then what the game is about as well. So your players are going to be taking on the role of a crew of a spaceship. They're going to be exploring the Third Horizon, which is a gigantic cluster of stars linked together by mystical portals. They're going to be unraveling secrets. They're going to be looking into plots and schemes aboard the Coriolis, the big space station. They're going to be carrying out missions, of course, and they're going to be praying to the icons. And that last one sounds a little odd, but that's because religion plays a big part in this game. Also, then we get the themes of the game. It's Arabian Nights in space. It's Middle Eastern culture rather than Western. So that shows up in the types of foods that are mentioned, music and fashion, the religion itself and philosophy and literature that shows up in the game. All of it very Middle Eastern culture focused rather than the Western one that a lot of us are used to. So this is going to be really cool. Also, we have the old versus the new. This is a part of the universe that has been populated for a long period of time by some people, but then there are also some people who have only recently arrived who are starting to make waves and take control. So you have that old versus new mentality. As well as, again, like I said, mysticism and icon worship. The icons are the gods of the Third Horizon, and you have some people who are really, really religious and zealots, and then you have the people who are, they're just praying when they're going on a journey and they're just praying for safety. So somewhat similar to our world as well, but religion does show up quite a lot in this game. And that shows up also with the dark between the stars, because I'm just going to read this little paragraph. The omens have foretold it, and the clergy have preached it for a long time now. The dark between the stars, the unspeakable corrupting force at work in the intersection between civilization and the endless nothingness of space, seems to be real. In Coriolis, the dark between the stars plays roughly the role of the devil in Earth's Christianity. So the dark between the stars is our big bad for this game. But those 3 pages do a really great job of boiling down the nuts and bolts of what this game is about and how it's going to be played by the players. The next few pages of the introduction get into a little bit more of the specifics about the Third Horizon. Again, it's still an overview, but it's a little bit more specific than what we just talked about. But it's starting to bring to light the different factions and conflicts that are happening within the Third Horizon and what it is your players are going to be coming up against. But speaking of your players, Chapter 2 is all about your characters. So this is probably what they're going to be most interested in when you start to discuss with them what this game is about and how they're going to be taking part in it. We also get another really great 2-page spread piece of art, which also really starts to show, for the first time I think in the book, this Middle Eastern culture influence showing up. It shows up a lot in the outfits of the characters in this piece of art, as well as then the decorations and the fabrics and the architecture of the building and the design of it and everything. The layout starts to feel very Middle Eastern, which is just a really cool look. I like it quite a lot. So the very beginning of this chapter about characters starts off with the group, which I absolutely love. This is a game that's all about playing together as a very specific type of group of individuals. Again, they're going to be crew members on a spaceship, but what kind of spaceship is it? What kind of crew are you? You could be traders, you could be mercenaries, you could be explorers or agents, pilgrims even, who are traveling for worship purposes. So they want you to focus on picking a group concept, and then they give you some kind of sub-concepts that you can be taking a look at as well. You're going to be picking out your spaceship then, your group talent, a patron, and a nemesis. Now, only once you have done those things do they want you to really be focusing on the individual player characters. But when you do that, you're going to be doing a lot of the things that you do in a lot of role-playing games. You're going to be choosing your background, a concept for your character specifically, and then you're going to be determining scores for your reputation, your appearance, your attributes, hit points, and all those things, just like you do in a lot of other role-playing games. But I love the idea that the focus at first is on the group, and then it's on the individuals. Now, there's information in here about the icons as well. We've been talking a little bit about how the idea of worship and religion is a big part of this game. This page right here on 26 gives us kind of our first real dive into the 9 icons, those gods. It does let us know that there's more information about them in Chapter 10, but real quickly we have the Lady of Tears, we have the Dancer, the Gambler, the Merchant, the Deckhand, the Traveler, the Messenger, the Judge, and the Faceless. Those are the 9 icons, the 9 gods here in Third Horizon. Now, you continue through this chapter to make your characters. You're going to be going through and choosing what's your character concept. Are you the artist? And if you are, here's your 2-page spread telling you a little bit about that concept. You also could be the data spider, the fugitive, the negotiator, operative, pilot, preacher, scientist, ship worker, soldier, trailblazer, and that is it. So there's a lot of different character concepts to choose from, and again, each one of these concepts, I love the detailed art that we get for them, really bringing them to life. This preacher here, I mean, talk about zealous look on that face. I don't know that I would want to be in a room with that person, but I might play that person. It might be very interesting. I absolutely love the helmet for this pilot. So far, probably my favorite piece of art. It's very, very evocative. The helmet is very insectile looking, scarab-like or beetle-like. Really cool. I like it quite a lot. But that is our chapter on the character creation, and now we're getting into the skills of the game, which gives us a little bit more of the mechanics of how the game is going to be played. As usual, we get a nice 2-page piece of art here for the opening of the Chapter 3 for skills, and then we get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of this game. So, we have 4 attributes that each character has. They have strength, agility, wits, and empathy. Strength, agility, wits, and empathy, and all of the other skills are going to look back at one of those 4 main attributes. You're going to have a level of strength, agility, wits, and empathy, which is going to give you some d6s to roll depending on that number, as well as then you're going to have a number associated with each of your general skills or advanced skills, so that when you use those, you're going to be rolling that amount of d6s as well, and that gives you your pool of d6s to roll. In this game, 6s, of course, are successes. So the more dice you get to roll, the better chance you have of succeeding at that task. If you don't roll any 6s, you have failed. Now, if you roll 3 or more 6s, you have completed a critical success. So, D6 system, you want to roll 6s to succeed. If you don't roll any, you fail. But if you don't roll any, do you automatically fail? Well, no. You do have the chance to pray to the icons. This has shown up in some of the other Free League publishing games. They most of the time call it pushing the roll, but here they call it praying to the icons, again giving it that flavor of the idea that religion is really important here. Depending on what skill you are using, there is an icon that is associated with it. You don't actually have to do a prayer, but the idea is that your character is praying to the god of that skill, and you get to re-roll your dice. Now, when you re-roll, there is consequences to that. And the consequence here is that the dark between the stars is also listening to your prayer. And the game master is given darkness points, so DP. These darkness points add up throughout time. They hoard them and they use them to the player's detriment. The GM can use them to re-roll their own dice for their NPCs. They can even take the initiative away from the player characters to give that initiative to the NPCs so that their character can go earlier in the round. There's personal problems. There's also the power of darkness. Each one of these things cost differing levels of darkness points. The bigger ones costing up to 3 darkness points. The cheaper ones 1 darkness point. The power of darkness is certain talents or abilities that can be activated by NPCs or creatures using those darkness points. So remember that you can push your luck, you can pray to the icons to succeed where once you failed, but you are empowering the game master to bring more difficulty to you in future actions. So I think that's a really fun balance, a little tug of war there between the players and the game master. And again, in the grand scheme of things, the game master is on the player's side. They want to see them succeed, but at the same time, they want to challenge them. And this is a fun little bit where you get to feel that the game master being against the players, just that tiny amount, that little bit of tension there. And I can see that playing out really fun later when all of a sudden the game master does something really cool and they have to say something like, I used darkness points for that. Thank you guys for those beautiful, beautiful darkness points. But yeah, so that is something that I really enjoy in this system. There's also information about opposed rolls and simultaneous actions. These things might come up during combat, but there's a chapter on that. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. And then we get into discussing the general skills of the game. Again, each one of these pointing back to one of those 4 main attributes, and they're giving you little sentences here to give you kind of a description of each of those skills and what some of their failures could look like, what their limited successes could look like, and what the critical successes could look like. Each one of those skills are given those examples. And then we also get into the advanced skills as well. So chapter 4 is probably going to be I know it's one of my favorite chapters for the character creation process, might be one of your players' favorites as well. And that is because it's all about talents. And these are unique things for your group and for the individual players. There are group talents, and this is going to be assigned to your group according to the group concept that they choose. Under each one of the concepts, you're going to have 3 choices. At the beginning of the game, the players group together and choose which one of those talents they want for their group, and you're stuck with it for the rest of the game. You don't get to learn any new ones, you just get that one. Most of these talents can then be used by all of the players in that group, unless otherwise stated. Then there's also icon talents, and these are really cool because it depends on which icon's symbol your character was born under or blessed by. And so you get that when you're making your character and you figure out which sign they were born under. And so depending on that, you get that talent. And if you use it during the game, you can only use it once per session, but when you use it, your game master gains another one of those darkness points we talked about earlier. So you get to use this really cool individual talent, and then you get to pay the consequences for it later. There's also general talents, and these can be learned by anyone during the game. It just costs 5 experience points. So when you're starting a new session or you're ending a session, you can use your experience points to purchase one of these talents and add it to your character, and there's a nice little list of those there that can do all sorts of fun things. Some of those, again, might end up giving your game master some darkness points. Then there's also the Humanite Talents. These are dependent on which type of human you're playing as. And so you don't get to choose that one. They can't be learned through the game. You can't spend experience points for them. They just are the ones that you get. And then there are cybernetic implants. This is where we get into that sci-fi feel again. These are implants, cybernetic implants that cost money and experience points, and they actually take you a period of days for your body to fully heal after the procedure. But again, some really cool options here for making your character more unique. There are also bionic sculpts, kind of the same idea there as the cybernetic stuff. And then there's mystical powers. Now, mystical powers are very interesting in that you need to have at least one skill level of 1 in the mystical powers. So you have to have a skill level of 1 in the mystic powers skill. And if you have that, then you're going to be able to gain possibly some of these powers. And again, it says the GM is going to decide some of the details, and each use of that power gives the GM another darkness point. Really cool options showing up for that also. And now for Chapter 5, Combat. Role-playing games are all fantastic, and you can meet really cool NPCs, and you can go to really crazy awesome places, but eventually we know it's all going to come down to some combat where we fight our enemies. And this game is no different. Eventually combat is going to break out. This is a really cool piece of art, by the way. But combat is going to break out, and this chapter is all about how that takes place. There's always going to be turns and initiative. Everyone's going to be rolling some dice to figure out that initiative, who's going to go in which order. There are ways then to raise your initiative or even lower your initiative. And when it's your turn during combat, everybody is given action points. They're given 3 action points. A slow action is going to cost you all 3 of your action points. A normal action will cost you 2. A fast action will cost you 1 action point. And then there are free actions. And these are listed here in this chapter, with slow actions being things like firing an aimed shot, not just attacking randomly. A normal action is possibly firing a normal shot. Fast actions are hitting the ground or getting up off the ground or drawing a weapon or picking up an item. On your turn, though, you are going to decide how you want to allocate your action points. Do you use all 3 for a slow action? Maybe use 2 for a normal action and then 1 for a fast action. And don't forget, you do have free actions as well, speaking to the other players that you're playing with, or even defending in an opposed role. So all sorts of things that can happen here, but you have 3 action points, and it's yours to decide how you want to spend them in combat. Reactions are a little bit weird. Again, these are things that are going to happen on another player's turn, and it's you responding to them. And those are going to be, in order to perform a reaction, you still have to actually spend action points for those actions if they cost anything. Some of them might be free actions, but if they're not, you want to be ready and willing to spend action points that you've held on to for that. It talks a little bit about range and movement as well, sneak attacks and ambushes and melee combat. We're not going to get into all of that information now, but those will come up in gameplay. But something else that we do want to get into is the idea of taking stress and or damage when playing the game, because these are a little bit of a unique thing. All this other stuff is pretty normal for combat in a role-playing game. But specifically in this game, there's a thing called stress. At the beginning of the game, your character is going to get a certain amount of mind points, or MP, and this is equal to your wits plus your empathy. So you're going to add those 2 things together to get your mind points, and during the game, certain things are going to cause you to lose mind points, causing you mental strain, whether that's coming from being attacked in combat or coming in contact with the dark between the stars. If at any point in time your mind points equal 0, you suffer from a breakdown, you collapse from fear or anxiety, and you can follow simple commands, but you can't take any specific action that require rolling dice. Now, after a period of time, you're going to get all of your mind points back, and then you're good to go again. You automatically recover 1 mind point per hour of resting, but if you eventually If you have suffered a breakdown, however, you do have to roll a die. And if the result of that roll is a 1, then your maximum mind points goes down by 1 permanently. So you're going to possibly break down, again, if your mind points hit 0, and when they hit 0, you roll a die. If you roll a 1, then even once you've recovered, your mind point total has gone down by 1. If at any point in time your maximum mind point gets reduced to 0, you have become a raving lunatic, says the book, and it's time to create a new PC. So, stress causes you to lose mind points, losing mind points causes you to break down, and you could possibly run out of mind points permanently, causing you to lose your PC. Now, beyond that, there is also damage that you could take during, physical damage that you could take during combat or other ways. And if you take damage, then you're going to have to recover from that. But normal damage is just like fatigue, bruises, cuts, that kind of thing. But they're easy to overcome. The thing that's hard to overcome is your critical injuries. It says here that when attacking an enemy in melee combat or from afar, you can spend any extra 6s that you have rolled to possibly do a critical injury to an NPC. And I'm sure that can be done, again, back to you as well from the NPCs. So any extra 6s can be used to try to do a critical injury. To do a critical injury, you have to have the amount of 6s equal to the crit value of the weapon you're using. So if the weapon you're using has a crit value of 4, then you need to have 4 6s rolled to put towards that critical value, that crit value. If you do this, then you get to roll on the D66 chart for critical injuries. Injuries, again, these can be done to you or you can be doing them to someone else. A lot of these have then a time limit associated with them, and that's the amount of time that the other players have to hopefully revive you before you die. Some of these things are possibly going to kill your character. We see here a 65 or a 66 is a pierced heart or a crushed skull. You are instantly killed. Your adventure ends here. Create a new PC. So a D66 is you're going to roll 2 6s. The first one is going to be your tens value, and the second one is going to be your singles value. I like the D66 chart. This is something else that has shown up in the Alien role-playing game and a few others by Free League Publishing. I think it's interesting that your normal damage isn't really something that you're going to have to worry about killing you. It's the critical injuries. And with that happening, it's more of a I'm choosing to try to do this thing, which is very interesting and I think is pretty darn cool. Now, there's a lot of other things out there that might hurt you: hunger and thirst, the vacuum of cold, dark space, radiation, lots of other things out there that could hurt you just beyond combat. But we mostly wanted to focus on combat here in this chapter, and I think with that information, you understand how combat is going to work in Coriolis. Now that we've gone through the first 5 chapters, you pretty much have an idea of how to play the game. So we're going to quickly fly through the rest of this book, which is still the majority of the book. There's a whole section on weapons and equipment. You get some really cool art for fashion. You also get some really good art for the different weapons and armor that are available in the game as well. And then we get into spaceships and star travel. And like I said earlier, your group will get to choose a spaceship that they start with. And so you are going to be going into these sections looking for what your ship is going to be. Maybe you decide you want to create your own ship, and there is a table for that, a way to go through and create your own ship that you would like to have. But again, there are some already pre-made ships that you can look at and decide this is the type of ship that we want for our players. Maybe you want the light freighter Scarab, or you want the gunship Azook. You have a lot of options here in the game for the types of ships you might want to have for your crew. There's also some information in here about space combat for when you are fighting against other spaceships. And then there's the information about star travel as well, because there are the mystical portals that are out there. Now, everything beyond this gets into specifically information for the Game Master. We have the chapter all about the Third Horizon with this really cool piece of art here showing the different stars, so the full system here. And then we get into what is the horizon like today with some really great art as well. We get into the factions. These are the different peoples who have formed together and have their own reasons for being here and for wanting to either take charge or just they want to live out their life. The Zenithians, I'm going to continue to screw that up as I play this game. The Zenithians are the newer arrivals to the Third Horizon, and then the First Come are the ones who have been here for a very long time and are seeing their world kind of upended by the Zenithians. So that's, again, that theme of old versus new. And then each of these groups are broken down into factions. We have the Consortium, the Free League, the Legion, the Syndicate, the Zenithian Hegemony, the Draconites, the Church of the Icons, Alam's Temple, the Order of the Pariah, the Nomad Federation. So we've got all of these groups and some information about each one of them for the Game Master so they can start to group their NPCs into those factions and bring to life the different machinations that those factions have going either on the spaceship Coriolis or in their home star systems. Again, just a whole bunch of really cool art throughout this book. A lot of it here in this latter end of the book. We get more information now on the different icons. Again, we have the 9 icons. They have the calendar image here. And then we get information about each one of them and, again, their symbols. Information on the Church of the Icons as well. The faith of the people. Spirits and myths. And then we get into a chapter all about Coriolis. And again, Coriolis, though it's the name of the book, isn't the name of the world. It's the name of a space station. It's a space station, which I think is just really interesting that they chose to name the whole game after a space station and not the world, I guess, that surrounds it. But you're very focused on the Coriolis, which is kind of the hub of the Third Horizon. It's where all of these different factions come together to figure out who's going to be in charge and what's going to be happening in the world. So a whole chapter for the Game Master all about Coriolis, this huge, massive space station. And then we get into the Kua system. So this is kind of the main system of the game because that is where the Coriolis space station is. It's orbiting within that system. It's also the name of the central planet in that system as well. But we get this is a really good example of just one of these star systems, remembering that there's a whole bunch of star systems connected by these mystical portals in the Third Horizon. So the Third Horizon isn't just one star system, it's a whole bunch of star systems. And this book is specifically just giving us the breakdown of one of those star systems. So you could take this information and build out the other star systems as well if you would like. Talk about some of the different planets in that star system. And then we get some more idea here, the Atlas of the Third Horizon, talking about the portals and jumping through those portals using your spaceship to go from one star system to another. And information again of the peoples that live in those different star systems. And then we get into kind of the bestiary of Coriolis, and this is going to talk about just some of the creatures that the players may or may not come up against in combat when they're traveling through the world. If they're not just fighting people, there are also these creatures that populate the star system. Some of them being very, very scary looking. And then we get information about running a campaign in the world of Coriolis as well. So this is pretty much the end of the book, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed flipping through it with me. Like I said, it's huge. We get these really cool, towards the end, deck plans of each of the 4 ships that we saw available to the players earlier on, each one of them having 4 different levels. They put a lot of love and time into this game. It looks really fun. If you're looking for a new sci-fi game, maybe this is the one that you want to be running for your players. So everybody, thanks for watching this. Let's go ahead and come back up from the table. I'll give you quick final thoughts on Coriolis. All right, everybody, so we are done taking a look at Coriolis, the Third Horizon by Free League Publishing, and I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it helped you decide whether you're interested in playing and or running this specific game. I know I have been intrigued now as I've looked through this game. The theme of it, the lore behind it is so deep and full. I'm definitely excited to eventually dive into it with my players as well. If you are interested, like I am, you can head on over to freeleaguepublishing.com and you can pick up your hardcover copy there or your PDFs, whichever work best for you. And if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. And also head over to tabletopgamingguild.com to learn a little bit more about us. But until we talk again, everybody, keep on playing games.